Today I'm sharing with you guys 6 super easy and delicious freezer meals, all with items that you can get from ALDI. All 6 of these recipes can be made in about an hour and 15 minutes, so feel free to make all of them or any of them individually. And don't worry, if you don't have an ALDI around you, you can also find these items at any grocery store. Today we're going to be making some barbecue chicken and veggies. I'm also going to be prepping some Caesar chicken melts, as well as a really delicious ginger soy salmon, some root beer pulled pork with barbecue sauce, a really awesome ham and corn chowder, and last but not least, a tater tot breakfast casserole. I also wanted to mention that if you guys want these recipes, I have a link in the description box below where you can go to print them all out. And I'm not just going to be putting these freezer meals together today. I'm actually going to show you what they look like cooked. Also, let's get into it. You are not going to want to miss this. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a minute to kind of talk about some basic supplies that you'll need for freezer cooking. You have the option to use Ziploc plastic freezer bags, and I do recommend that you use either a generic or the Ziploc brand of freezer bags because they are thicker. Or you can also purchase reusable bags on Amazon. I'll link these down below. I have used these on and off over the past couple years. I do find that they're a little bit difficult to clean. And so depending on how much time I have, I don't always use them, but they're definitely an option if you want to save money and save waste. Amazon also has these freezer bag holders. These again are not necessary, but what you can do is you can use these to clip your freezer bag up into while you hold it up and put everything in there. I find that they're really, really convenient, especially if you do a lot of freezer meals. But if you don't want to invest in those, you can actually just use like a big bowl or a measuring cup like this and add your bag in there. Another thing that you'll use quite a bit for freezer cooking is freezer pans, and these particular ones are from Costco. I really like getting them from there because they're good quality, and I think you actually get like 30 in a package for around $10, which is a really great deal. Dollar Tree also has pans like these, and then there are also different sizes. You can get like smaller ones, larger ones, circle, rectangle. These are like a 9x13, so they're great for making casseroles and lasagnas and things like that. All right, so the first recipe that I'm going to put together is this crock pot ham and corn chowder. Now for this, you will need a freezer bag. I've got some pepper here, some whole milk. Just pretend these are from ALDI. I actually got the wrong kind. I got the shredded ones and not the cubed ones. You can use the shredded hash browns if you want to. A lot of times my ALDI does have the cubed ones, but either way, you just need a bag of frozen potatoes or hash browns. I have some chicken broth here. Now I do want to say that even though you can get all of these items that are in these recipes at ALDI, I did not get extra things that I already had at home. For example, chicken broth. I'm not going to buy more of that when I already have some at home. So use what you have. I have some dried minced onion here, a bag of frozen corn, some Colby Jack cheese. This is shredded, and this will be to top the soup with when it's done. And then some cornstarch. I know you can get that at ALDI also. And then they had these really great ham steaks. I thought they were actually a really good price for about $4 each for these large ham steaks. Now I bought 2 because I'm not quite sure how much I'm going to need once I get them cubed up and in the bag, but we'll kind of play that by ear. And then I have some green onions that I got from ALDI as well for the garnish. So the first thing that we're going to do is cut our ham up, and I did only end up using one of these ham steaks, which was fine. It made more than enough for my freezer bag, and I am going to cut most of the fat off of this. Since it's going to be cooking in the soup, I just want to make sure that it's as lean as possible, and you just want to cut this into like dice or just small bite-sized pieces, and I'm just placing that into the bottom of the freezer bag. Once I have the ham in the bag, I'm going to add in the rest of the ingredients. So I'm going to add my bag of hash brown potatoes. The great thing about using frozen hash browns is that number 1, you don't have to cut up potatoes, and number 2, the frozen potatoes are already prepped, so you don't have to worry about potatoes that you cut up yourself going brown. Next, I'm going to dump in my bag of frozen corn, and then I'm going to take half a stick of butter and just cut this into small cubes and put that into the bag next. I'm going to add in my seasonings. So I'm using some dried minced onion. If you don't have that on hand, you could also use regular diced onion. I'm also adding some pepper and some chicken bouillon powder. I'm not sure if ALDI sells chicken bouillon powder, but if they don't, or you can't find it there, just buy the chicken bouillon cubes. It will work just as well. So after I got everything in the bag, I went ahead and sealed filled that up. And I like to use these Avery removable labels. That's something I forgot to mention when I was telling the supplies to you guys. And I basically just write on there what the item is and the instructions for cooking it once I take it out of the freezer, and then I can just stick it on the bag. And you can also label it with the date, which I would recommend if you're not going to use it, you know, right away. All right, so here is my freezer bag. As you can see, I could not fit one more thing in there. So we've got the ham, the potatoes, the corn, the butter, and the seasonings. I like to just put everything in the freezer bag except the liquids, obviously to make it as easy as possible. So you can see here that when we cook it, we're going to add it slow cooker, add 4 cups of water, 3 cups of milk, slow cook it, and then in the last 30 minutes, whisk in a cornstarch slurry made with 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. And all that means is that you will just whisk this with a little bit of cold water and kind of whisk it into the soup and let it thicken. So that is meal number 1 done. Took like maybe 10 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna cook our ham and corn chowder in the crock pot. So I think, let's see, I'm gonna slow cook this for, let's see, low. This has a preset low for 8 hours. I think that'll be fine since this is still frozen. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this to the crock pot along with 4 cups of water and 3 cups of milk. All right, so we got our soup here. You can see that it's filled to the brim, and don't worry about the ham being frozen in a big chunk because obviously that's gonna cook down as this cooks, and you know, it'll cook into the soup. So I'll show you guys later what this looks like. All right, so here we have our crock pot ham and corn chowder. You can see that it's all mixed together. However, it's quite thin, and I apologize because I've got the air fryer going as well. But this is some cornstarch that I mixed with a little bit of water. I'm gonna start with about 3 tablespoons of cornstarch mixed with a little bit of cold water, and we're gonna see if that is enough to thicken. Now, I did turn this back up to high because I do want to let this simmer for a little bit. That will help the soup thicken up, and then we will give it a taste. Obviously, add salt and pepper to taste. That's one thing about recipes, is that you always want to season it to your taste. Not everyone likes the same amount of salt and pepper. And with something like this, especially that has ham in it, you kind of want to wait until the end to add, you know, more salt. Obviously, ham is salty. You know, stuff that has like cheese in it, ham, any type of like salty ingredient like that, just wait till the end. All right, so here is our completed soup, and I put mine in a bowl here with a little bit of cheese. I'm gonna add some green onions and then probably some crackers, and I did add some extra salt. This turned out really, really good. Highly recommend. Very delicious, quick, and convenient recipe. The next freezer meal recipe is breakfast inspired, but you can have it for any meal. I'm very excited about this because it is a breakfast tater tot casserole. Now, I secretly love regular tater tot casserole. I feel like we are connoisseurs of it here in the Midwest, but never have I ever had a breakfast one, so I'm very excited to try this. So what I have here is some tater tots. You can get tater tots at Aldi. I had some on hand, so I'm just gonna use these. We're gonna need half this bag, 2 cups of shredded Colby Jack cheese. Aldi has one of the best deals on cheese, either block cheese or shredded cheese if you're looking for a good value on that. I've got salt and pepper, some onion powder, garlic powder. I've also got some green onions. These are going to be for garnish. And then I am going to use 12 eggs. So these are the cage-free large brown eggs from Aldi. I buy them all the time. They're great. And then you can use any type of meat for this: bacon, sausage, ham. I'm going to go ahead and use this breakfast pork sausage. And we do have to brown this up before we make the casserole. So let's do that real quick. I went ahead and greased my freezer pan with some nonstick cooking spray, and I'm just going to add a half of a bag of tater tots. That's about a pound of tater tots to the bottom of the pan. Next, I'm going to take that sausage that I cooked and crumbled in my pan, and I did add that to a plate lined with paper towel just to drain any grease off, and I'm going to add that to the pan as well on top of the tater tots and just spread it into an even layer. So this recipe calls for 12 eggs, so I'm going to crack those all into my measuring cup here and just give those a whisk, season them with a little bit of salt and pepper. If I didn't mention it before, all of the freezer meals in this particular video serve 6, so just so you're aware if you're making these for your family. So to the eggs, I'm going to add some onion powder, some garlic powder, some ground pepper, and some salt. And I'm just going to whisk these up until they are well combined. I'm also going to add some cheese to the eggs, about 1.5 cups of that. I'm going to reserve about 1/2 cup of cheese for the top of the breakfast casserole once we put it all together. So once I get the eggs and the cheese mixed together, I'm just going to pour that over the tater tots and the sausage and just kind of spread that out and let the egg kind of seep through to the bottom. Now, I have to say, normally when I make a traditional tater tot casserole, I have the tater tots on top so they get nice and crispy. So this will be quite an interesting experience. I've never had it like this before. So once again, I have one of my labels here and I'm just going to write on there the directions for baking this, and then I will add it on top of the foil and I'll cover up the dish and get it into the freezer. Now, you do want to garnish this particular casserole with some green onions. So since we're going to have this later in the week, I'm just going to go ahead and slice those up so they're ready for me in the fridge. Okay, so here is our tater tot casserole. So I'm going to go ahead and cover this up with foil, and then I have my instructions written out here. So this will go on the top when we're ready to make it. Thaw it overnight in the fridge. We'll bake it at 350 for 40 to 50 minutes covered, and then garnish with green onion. So this looks super delicious, really easy to put together as well. All right, so we are going to cook our breakfast tater tot casserole. Here's what it looks like after I thawed it overnight in the refrigerator. So I'm gonna go ahead and bake this covered just because I want it to cook through without the cheese browning too much on top. So I've got the oven set to 350 degrees. I'm just gonna cover this with foil. I'll probably end up baking it for about 40-45 minutes, and then I'll take the foil off at that point and see if I wanna, leave the foil off and brown it a little bit more. Okay, so here is our completed breakfast tater tot casserole. You can see that it came out of the pan really easily. I went ahead and cut a square out of here so I could show it to you guys, but I definitely think this makes a really good, generous 6 servings, and this would be a great meal prep as well. This would reheat really well in the microwave throughout the week. In fact, I think that's what we'll end up doing with it. And here is what it looks like on the plate. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually have this for a brunch for myself today, and maybe I'll put a little bit of hot sauce on it, but it's really good. Recommend it. Like I said, you could add any type of meat you wanted to in here. You could use bacon, sausage, ham. You could use no meat. You could add veggies, mushrooms, whatever you want. Yum. Okay, so the next freezer meal is a root beer barbecue pulled pork. Super excited to try this one. So I've got a pork butt roast from Aldi here. I've also got 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 onion that I'm gonna slice up. Now, this is actually a sugar-free Zevia root beer that I got from Hy-Vee, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit because this isn't from Aldi. However, my Aldi does have root beer in 2 liters if you wanted to substitute for that. I'm just trying to make it a little less sugar, so I picked that up instead. I've got some Dijon mustard, some ketchup, again, not from Aldi, but they have ketchup there that you can definitely get, although most of us probably have it on hand. Some Worcestershire, oh my God. My first introduction to critical comments on YouTube was me mispronouncing Worcestershire sauce for like probably a year. Yeah, anyway. I have some Worcestershire sauce here, some W sauce, some apple cider vinegar, cayenne pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, smoked paprika. Now, Aldi, I don't believe has smoked paprika, or at least I've never seen it at mine. This is from Trader Joe's, but if you don't have smoked paprika, don't go out and buy it just for this. Just use regular paprika. And then I've also got some salt and pepper. And I'm gonna use one of these freezer bags that has kind of the stand on the bottom of it so that it's easier to add the pork roast to there. And then for serving, we've got some hamburger buns. Okay, so I've got my freezer bag here, and I'm going to go ahead and put my pork roast in. And I really like these freezer bags that kind of stand up on their own. I think they're awesome, especially for larger items like this. Next, I'm going to need a sliced onion. So I'm just going to peel that and give it a slice. The best thing about all of these freezer meals is that they are fairly quick to put together. I think I mentioned in the intro that I put all of these together in about an hour and 15 minutes, which I think is fantastic. Some of them really only take like 10 minutes to put together. And obviously you're saving a ton of time on the back end when it comes to cooked dinner. So into the bag with the pork roast and the onions, I'm going to add my can of Zevia root beer, and I'm just going to squeeze most of the air out of that and seal up the bag. Next, I'm going to make the barbecue sauce for this recipe. If you wanted to take an even bigger shortcut, you could obviously use bottled barbecue sauce, but I thought this would be fun to try. So I added some ketchup into my bowl along with some brown sugar. I'm also adding some apple cider vinegar and then some water just to thin it out a little bit. And we're going to be freezing this separately from the pork. And then what we'll do is end up cooking it and adding in the sauce sort of like during the last hour of cooking. I'm going to add some smoked paprika as well as some Dijon mustard, a little bit of cayenne pepper. You could add more or less if you want it more or less spicy. I'm also going to add some ground pepper, some onion powder, some garlic powder, and some salt. And then I'll just give this a whisk until everything comes together. I'm going to add it into a freezer safe container and go ahead and freeze that along with the pork. You could also add it to a quart size Ziploc bag if you wanted to as well. All right, so here is the completed freezer meal. So we've got our bag here with our pork in it. So this will go in the slow cooker for like 8 to 10 hours on low. We'll shred it, and then the sauce is right here. So this is also going to go in the freezer, or if you're gonna, if you're gonna make this within a week or so, I would say you could even leave this in the refrigerator, but it can be frozen obviously, and then you'll just thaw it out, and then during the last like hour or so of cooking, you'll add the barbecue sauce in with the pork. So here is our root beer pulled pork with barbecue sauce. Well, barbecue sauce isn't there yet. I need to take that out of the freezer. But I've got a large slow cooker here. This is my Casserole slow cooker that I really don't use that often, but I'm using it because it's nice and big and I can kind of fit this in there. So I'm just gonna add this to the slow cooker. Obviously, this is all frozen in one big block, but as it cooks, it will melt. And so I'm gonna cook this on low for about 10 hours, and then we'll shred it and add the barbecue sauce. Okay, so here is our pork roast. You can see that it's falling apart quite easily, so it's definitely done. So I've got just a baking dish here, a 9x13 baking dish. What I'm gonna do is remove the pork, try not to let it fall apart very carefully, into here, because what I wanna end up doing is pulling most of the fat off, because I don't want like big chunks of that in my pork. And then I'll shred it, probably drain most of this liquid out. And then I've got my barbecue sauce right here that we made, thawed out, mix that with the pork and heat it through. Okay, so I'm gonna add my sauce to the slow cooker, and then I'm gonna turn this on high just to let it simmer for a little bit. All right, so here is the pulled pork. Turned out really good. I am just going to serve this on some buns with a little bit of extra barbecue sauce that I had in the fridge and some pickles on top. So boom, barbecue pork. Hello, sir. So the next recipe is going to be a salmon freezer meal, which I'm really excited to try this. So I've got 2 pieces of salmon here that I got at ALDI. This recipe makes 6 servings, so I figured that 2 of these would be more than enough for 6 people, or more than enough for my 2 kids because they love salmon and they'll eat a lot of it. I have some lemon pepper seasoning that I got from ALDI, some cornstarch, orange juice, I got this at ALDI as well, some soy sauce. They do carry soy sauce. It's just not what I have on hand. Some olive oil. I also have some of this stir-in ginger paste. You can actually find this there in the spice aisle. It's really good, and then you don't have to grate your own ginger. I also have some brown sugar and some fresh garlic. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just portion my salmon into 6 pieces, and I really do recommend the fresh salmon at ALDI. I think it's delicious. I've never had an issue with it. I think that it's pretty affordable and it tastes good. I've never had any problems with it. So I'm just sectioning each of these into 3 pieces, like I said, and I kind of debated trying to take the skin off of this before I put it in the freezer bag, but in the end I decided to leave it on, and then when I cook it, it'll be easier to take the skin off. Obviously you can eat the skin if you want to. It's not going to be that great in this type of recipe because it's not going to get crispy, so just keep that in mind. And I went ahead and put all of those into the freezer bag. Those 6 pieces fit perfectly in a gallon freezer bag, and I'm going to measure my soy sauce into a measuring cup and make sort of the marinade or the sauce for this recipe. So just a hint, we did have this last night and it was delicious, so I highly recommend this particular recipe, especially if you like salmon. So I added my soy sauce to there. Next, I'm going to add the brown sugar and spill everything all over the place. I'm going to give that a whisk. I'm going to add about 2/3 of a cup of orange juice. That is a really good addition as well. Next, I'm going to add some cornstarch. I think in the final recipe, I would definitely recommend to add some sriracha to this because I think it would have been better with just a little bit of heat. But my kids love this. They like salmon anyway. They could eat it every single day, but they particularly like this. In fact, when I served it to them last night, Connor's like, "This looks like it's from a fancy restaurant." I was like, oh my gosh, kids are so cute. But anyway, next for the sauce, I am going to add some olive oil and then add some of my ginger paste. And it also calls for some garlic. I didn't really want to dirty my garlic press, although I ended up dirtying it in one of the subsequent recipes, but whatever, you know, hashtag logic. So I'm just going to smash these garlic cloves and mince them up, and it does give a really good flavor to the sauce and the salmon. So just mince up your garlic as fine as you can, or use a garlic press like I probably should have, and then whisk it into the sauce and you are good to go. Okay, so I'm just going to add the sauce to my bag of salmon, and just be careful because this does obviously get a little bit messy if you end up filling it. And then just try to arrange the salmon in the bag as flat as possible so that all of the pieces can get contact with the sauce. All right, so here is our salmon. I've got my 6 pieces in there with the sauce, and so this will go into the freezer, and then when I want to make it, I'll just thaw it out in the refrigerator, bake it on a sheet tray at 400 degrees for 20 minutes, and I hope my kids really love it. Okay, so here is our salmon freezer meal. I've thawed it out in the refrigerator, and I'm just going to put it on this baking sheet here that I have lined with foil, and I sprayed it with a little bit of cooking spray just to make sure that it didn't stick, although I'm gonna put it skin side down, and we actually kind of want the skin to stick to the foil, unless you want to eat the skin. I don't, but you might want to, although it won't be crispy after you cook it like this. Okay, so here's our salmon. I'm gonna cook this at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes until it is cooked all the way through. All right, so here is how that freezer salmon turned out. It's so good. I highly recommend this recipe. I just have it with some rice and some steamed broccoli, and I garnished it with some green onion. Really, really good. Highly recommend. Okay, so the next meal I'm going to put together is some barbecue chicken and veggies. So I've got some chicken breast here. This is a large pack that I got from Aldi. I'm probably going to end up splitting this in half, using half for this recipe and half for the next one. I've got one of my freezer bags here with my bag holders, some Worcestershire sauce, tomato paste, some brown sugar, onion, peppers. I've got 1 red and 1 green. I've got 2 sweet potatoes. We're going to kind of cut these up and see how it goes, how much we have in the bag, and you know, if we feel like we need 1 or 2, but I do have 2 here. The good thing is that Aldi sells these, or at least at my Aldi they sell them by the pound, so you can buy as many as you need. And then I've got a zucchini and some garlic. So I will say that out of all of the recipes in this video, this is probably the one that takes the longest, and it's not necessarily because it's complicated, it's just because there is some chopping and peeling of vegetables involved. For the zucchini, I just left the skin on and diced it into bite-sized pieces. pieces. You just want to kind of take care to try and cut all of the veggies into as uniform a size pieces as you can, so that they'll all cook the same in the slow cooker. You can use any variety of bell peppers that you want to in this recipe. I just used one red and one green, but you can use whatever you have on hand. I actually think I'm gonna like rename this recipe to something like Farmhouse chicken stew or something like that, because it was really good, but it didn't necessarily turn out like a barbecue chicken like I thought it would, but it's still really delicious. So either way, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it's called as long as it tastes good, right? So next I'm going to take my sweet potato and I'm just going to peel that. I'll give it a rinse and cut that into bite-sized pieces. I have to say, I'm not normally a huge fan of sweet potato, but it was actually really good in this recipe. And sweet potato is good in the slow cooker because it cooks it really thoroughly. Sweet potatoes are obviously very hard and take a long time to cook. And sometimes when you cook them in the oven, they can tend to burn on the outside before they cook through on the inside. So this is a perfect solution for that. And I also wanted to mention, if you want to make this recipe even quicker, you can definitely buy pre-chopped veggies. I know that in most grocery stores, they have pre-chopped onion and pepper, and sometimes they even have zucchini pre-chopped. And I know for a fact that at my Walmart, they do sell frozen cubed sweet potatoes as well. So that would be an option if you wanted to make this even faster. Next, I'm going to chop up my onion, and I'm just going to chop this into bite-sized pieces and get that into the bag as well. So next I'm going to work on cubing up my chicken breast, and I have 3 large chicken breasts here, and I'm just cutting those into large bite-sized pieces. Again, make sure that you cut those into large chunks and try to keep them as uniform as possible so that all of the chicken will cook through at the same rate. If you can cut the pieces larger, that is a bit better because that way they will tend not to dry out quite as much in the slow cooker. So for the sauce for this recipe, I'm going to add some tomato paste. This is a 6-ounce can of tomato paste into my bowl. Next, I'm going to add some brown sugar and some Worcestershire sauce and some Dijon mustard, and I'm just going to give that a whisk. I'm also going to add some garlic. Here I am dirtying up my garlic press. And then I'm going to add some salt and pepper to that. And I also added 1 can of water from the tomato paste can into the sauce as well, just so I could loosen it up a little bit and pour it into the bag a little bit better. So here's everything in my bag. As you can see, those bag holders are awesome for prepping these freezer meals. I poured the sauce into the top, tried to squeeze out most of the air, and yes, I only ended up using 1 of the sweet potatoes, and this made quite a bit of food. All right, so here is my barbecue chicken and veggies freezer meal. This one is definitely packed full. I could not have fit another sweet potato in there. So I've got all my veggies, my chicken, and my sauce. And to make this, you can add it frozen into the crock pot. Add 1 cup of either water or chicken broth and cook it on low for 8 hours. All right, so this is the barbecue chicken and veggies frozen meal, freezer meal that I made. This one does not have to thaw out. You can just add it frozen right into the crock pot. So I'm gonna put this in there. What I like to do is just kind of let it sit on the counter for maybe 20 minutes just to kind of loosen it up from the bag so everything comes out easily. And then I need to add 1 cup of water or chicken broth to it. I'm gonna probably add chicken broth. But what I'm gonna do is actually use that cup of water to rinse out this bag and then pour it into the crock pot so that I get all of the sauce out. I'm gonna put a lid on this and we're gonna cook this on either, you can cook it on low for 8 hours, but I'm gonna cook it on high for 4 hours. Okay, so here is the finished dish. Actually really simple and super healthy, just a lot of lean protein and veggies. And the flavors in it aren't super strong, so if you want to add hot sauce, I would recommend that. But the kids loved it. I think if you have picky kids, it would be an awesome one for that. I would definitely serve this with a side of crusty bread. So this next recipe, I'm actually really excited for because I love anything Caesar. This is a recipe for chicken Caesar melt. So I've got here some chicken breast. This is the other half of the package that I got from ALDI. So it's 6 thin cut chicken breasts. I would say they're probably around 4 ounces, 4 to 5 ounces each. I've got some avocado oil, some pepper. I've got my freezer bag here. This is some Caesar dressing. You'll need some of this. I am using just what I have on hand, but you can definitely get Caesar dressing at Aldi. I've got some Dijon mustard, some rolls. You can use a baguette, or you can use these French rolls or hamburger buns, whatever you have. I've got some parsley here. This will be to top the dish with, so we won't be actually putting this in the freezer bag, as well as the mozzarella. We'll be topping those as well once we cook the sandwiches, or finish them rather. And then I've also got some fresh garlic. So this is probably one of the quickest recipes to put together in this video. I'm adding some Caesar dressing to a measuring cup. I just need about 3/4 of a cup of that. Next, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of avocado oil, or you could also use olive oil as well. And then I'm also going to need 3 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. I'm going to add some pepper and just stir that up. It does take a little work to get the oil incorporated into the dressing. I love anything Caesar, so I think it's going to be really delicious, especially with all of that garlic in there. So I am crushing all of my garlic cloves and just kind of crushing them with my palm to get the skin off. And then I'm going to add them to the garlic press and squeeze that in and give that a mix. The good thing also about, spending some time in your kitchen, either on a weekend or whenever, and kind of putting all of these freezer meals together, is that you can just dirty all your dishes at once, and then, you don't have to worry about it for another week or so. But really, 6 meals, you could put this together definitely in one afternoon, and you would have dinner for the entire week. So who doesn't love that, right? Okay, so I've got my freezer bag here with one of my bag holders. I'm just going to add my chicken breast to that, and then I'm going to pour in the Caesar dressing / marinade combination, making sure I get all of it into the bag. And then I'm just going to seal that up, and again, kind of flatten it out and massage it so that all of the chicken will come in contact with the marinade. All right, so here are our I always think it's funny when I say that. Here are the chicken Caesar melts. So this is obviously all in a freezer bag. It smells delicious, so I can't wait to try this. So basically you can thaw this overnight, put it in the slow cooker, cook it on low for 4 hours, shred the chicken. You can put it on top of bread, top with mozzarella, broil it, and then top with chopped parsley. This would also be really good topped on pasta or rice as well. So yeah, super excited, like I said, to try this. Okay, so we are gonna cook the chicken Caesar melts. In fact, I'll take this label off while I can. And I'm gonna put this in my slow cooker and cook it on low for 4 hours. It's actually like, we're gonna be having dinner in like 3 hours, so I might cook it on high for a little bit and then turn it down to low. Okay, so I know someone is probably gonna ask me about this slow cooker. It's actually a multi-cooker that I got. It's a Casserole brand. I got it years ago. I can't say it's necessarily my favorite slow cooker. I do like that it has different settings. I just feel like the temperature isn't as congruent with a normal slow cooker. And one thing I've always wanted to do that I haven't done yet is put water in all of my slow cookers and heat them up, and then like take the temperature and see which ones are which temperatures. Because like, for example, this says slow cook, and if you put it on high, you can see that it went to 204 degrees Fahrenheit. But I've had it at that before and it didn't seem like it cooked very fast. I don't know, I turned it up to 210. But there's like different settings on here. I don't even know if this is available anymore. If I can find it, I'll link it on Amazon. But I think there's probably an Instant Pot brand one that's a lot better than this. I don't know. I know some of you have it. You can let me know what you think. The reason why I liked using it a lot at first is because it had the brown function. So you could actually like saute things in here before you slow cooked it. I don't know. I mean, I can do that with the Instant Pot too. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Anyway, I have my chicken in here. There's these 6 chicken breasts. So I'm going to go ahead and slow cook this. And then when it's done, I'll show you how I'll put the sandwiches together. Okay, so I went ahead and removed my chicken to a bowl just so I could shred it easier with 2 forks. Now I have updated the recipe to reflect the changes that I would recommend for this particular dish. As you can see, it turned out a little bit dry, so I went ahead and added 2 cups of chicken broth to the original recipe, and then I would recommend serving this with some additional dressing or mayo. Unless you have picky kids who like things super plain, I think it would be fine for them. But what I'm doing here is just taking some French rolls and splitting them open and putting them on a baking sheet that I lined with foil, and then I'm just going to pile some of that chicken mixture on top of each one. This did have really good flavor. I think that if you like Caesar dressing, it's definitely delicious. I like how the chicken kind of marinates in that and picks up a lot of that flavor. And I'm just topping these with some shredded mozzarella cheese. You could really use any cheese that you have on hand. And I'm going to pop these into a 400-degree oven for about 10 minutes, basically just until the cheese gets melty on top. So while those are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and chop up a little bit of parsley just to garnish them with, both for flavor and just because it makes it prettier. Here are what the Caesar chicken melts look like when they come out of the oven. So you could either do these as a sandwich. I think they would be good as a panini, or if you wanted to make the chicken a little bit saucier, you could also serve it with rice or pasta. The opportunities are really endless. So here is what the finished dish looked like after I garnished it. Really delicious. All right, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Also, in the description box below will be a link where you can print out all of the recipes. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.